Good evening, everyone, and welcome to what we hope will be a very fruitful discussion on an exciting and growing industry. Now, the term concert economy has become a bit of a buzzword lately, and our city has seen some interest as a music destination. Think music festivals like Bandland or Echoes of Earth, but it's also been passed over several times, most recently, if we can think of Coldplay. We're going to take a closer look at this today, and we are fortunate to have with us a panel with unique vantage points into this concert culture. Let's start with a bit of context. So our city is not new to a vibrant music culture, and events are not new to our city either. And Bruce, I was hoping you could start us off with a little bit of background. How have you seen this space evolve in the past 10 years in terms of bands, in terms of new artists emerging, in terms of diversity of genres as well? What have you observed?
Okay, that's a lot to unpack there. But if you say the last 10 years, that's 2015 to now. And well, the band I've been in has been around from 1996. So we've seen a lot before that as well. But I think across the last 10 years, between 2015 and now, the sheer number of artists that are coming out and have the opportunity to write, record, and release their material has again exponentially increased. Also because the methods of production and release have become so democratized thanks to technology, right? So that doesn't necessarily mean that all of those artists are building effective, sustainable, long-term careers in the industry. And we find that a lot of young artists have to wear multiple hats to have a sustainable career in music, right? Because it's not like there's a very kind of understood roadmap to success. If you want to be a full-time musician, right? Some people get lucky, they're in the right place at the right time, what the stuff they're working on just translates to something that everyone wants to listen to, and it becomes a success, at least for some time. But also keeping that success going year after year is a significant challenge, right? So musicians find themselves having to do multiple things in order to have a sustainable career in music. This is my story as well. Right? I mean, I play in the band, but I also teach music. We run a music school. We run the businesses associated with music. But that's what keeps our ecosystem ticking. And I guess that's what we need to talk about more, which is the ecosystem that supports careers in the music industry, right? And that's where even events is a big thing. A lot of musicians work for event companies because it's a sustainable way to stay in the industry and make a living for yourself while pursuing your art in the time that you have left. So I'd say that, and I was having these conversations just outside as well, it's simultaneously amazingly exciting, lots of great opportunities, but also really, really difficult from a musician standpoint to have a sustainable long-term career in this.
Right, that makes a lot of sense, and also brings us to this question of viability and sustainability when we talk about concert hubs. And Om, I think I'd like to hear your perspective on what makes a city viable as a concert hub for events specifically, and where does Bengaluru stand in that sense and compared to other cities in India?
Right. The session is called How Do You Bring Bangalore Back to Being a Rock Capital? No? Isn't that what it is? I think we still are, we always will be the rock capital because of the kind of audiences that we have. We've got the youngest audiences from across the country. The maximum number of concerts, EDM parties and everything that happen are only in Bangalore. So, which means we always have been and will continue to be a rock capital. But the way to go about it is from a consumer, there's a perception that people have, right? Consumers think, oh, you know, we don't have proper infrastructure, we don't have transportation, we don't have better venues, whatever. That's from a consumer's standpoint, the difficulty in attending an event, from the food, beverages, toilets, facilities, sanitation, everything is a challenge. But from a promoter's point of view, a person who's organizing an event, you know, it takes so much of an effort for them to actually connect with bands, whether international, domestic, get sponsorships, build from the ground up, from nothing, from a ground, to build an infrastructure, and then hope for them to be able to make money in return. It's a huge challenge that they kind of face, and I think they need to be rewarded, they need to be recognized, they need to be valued. By whom? By the government. So from a government standpoint, it's important for them to understand what it does to their own interest, their own economy, taxes, employment, and everything else. They do recognize that. I think Bangalore is one of the cities who, I think I'll come to that in the next segment, but just to give an analogy, if you have sports venues that are looking good currently in the country, it's because sporting events are happening, all the league matches and cricket, and of course, so therefore the government is building infrastructure. But what's happening for entertainment? There's nothing. Nothing at all which is purpose-built for entertainment yet. The day you have it, small, big, anything, as long as you have it, like Divya was, just before the session, I was talking to her, you have the bandstand. You know, as kids used to go to the Cubbon Park, listen to people performing, bands performing. So do you have it in every precinct? Do you have that ecosystem? Can the government have the empathy and say that, look, we will enable these things? So those are the things that we need to kind of really find. I don't know what your next question is going to be, but I have so much to say as far as how the government can help. And I'll keep it for the next round. We are running out of time, so it's cool.
Yeah, we'll keep that in mind for the next round. And I think what you mentioned in terms of there, of course, being challenges, but also incredible economic potential, which is why it's important to consider from a policy-making perspective. And that's where I'd come to you, Mr. Rizwan. What challenges does this introduce in terms of governance? What is the conversation around this, considering the scale of these events are really growing? And the numbers are much, much larger. So how is the conversation changing in the policy-making space?
I think the challenge is in our minds, the way we think, right? If Bangalore is an international city, we have to behave internationally. And with the world shrinking and becoming a village, right? So there is a lot of transfer of culture from one part of the world to another. And we being a crore and a 50 lakh population city, there is a huge demand for different types of cultural events, right? And we are also multilingual city. There is huge demand. And if you need to have cultural events here, we need to think and see it in a different way. It is not only an entertainment thing. It is an entertainment thing, but it's also a revenue generation sector. It is also a job creation sector. And the governments have to think in that way, right? And we have to change our approach. And having said that, our approaches are very different. If you want a Coldplay in Bangalore, and if 1 lakh and more people come and watch, the governmental support to that kind of an concert would be very different. They would feel like, kya hai ye? Humko itna sab karna pad raha hai. We have to do so much for that. And if a religious guru or a Baba wants 1 lakh or 2 lakh people for his gathering, we would happily go and open our whole hearted support, and we would, make it a success. So there is a thing in our minds which needs to change, and Bangalore needs to create infrastructure. It is not a good thing that a concert cannot be done in Bangalore and it can be done in Ahmedabad, because no one recognizes Ahmedabad the world over. No one recognizes Delhi either. It is our city which is recognized the world over. So we need to live up to that name we have today.
Right. And in terms of this discussion on infrastructure, Bruce, what makes a city more welcoming from the artist's perspective? Because we heard Om on the event side. So as an artist, both locally and globally, what would make the city more welcoming?
In my choice to continue living in Bangalore, when, from a music career perspective, perhaps a move to Bombay at some point would have been the smart thing to do, because that's where the music industry is and there's a lot more money to be made in Bombay and so on. But, and many musicians, even from cities like Bombay, are now coming here, especially younger ones, because the city is still a little bit friendlier in terms of rent. I mean, it's changing very quickly, but it's still a little bit friendlier than Bombay. And there seems to be a little more risk-taking, chance-taking that you can do with your art itself, simply because the imperative of meeting your rent payments is not so high that every single project you undertake must deliver in spades in terms of how much money it has to make. Otherwise, you just can't continue, right? So, I mean, that's what's so important about encouraging the culture of art. I'm not talking just about, you know, a particular style of music or whatever. If you have to be an artist and you have to survive in a particular city, you need multiple things to allow yourself to, you know, pay the rent, put your kids in good school, you know, just take care of your responsibilities and devote time to furthering your art and not just have to worry that every single piece of work you do has to succeed at this level, otherwise I cannot continue to do this at all, right? You need a little bit of support, and that's where again this governmental thing that comes in. And you know, we meet musicians, so many of them have traveled through Bangalore and played here, and they talk about how the state helps so much in supporting their tours, in supporting, giving them stipends when they're traveling, because it's they're serving as ambassadors of not just music but their culture. And I think we can do that with all of the, you know, the variety of culture that we have here. So again, there's this partnership that needs to happen between private and public entities that sets up these ecosystems that can kind of support artists of all kinds, not just musicians. And like Sir said, I think we are now past the thing about saying that, you know, as Bangaloreans in a city like this, there is only one kind of culture of music that we must promote. The world is too much of a village right now to say that it's only one thing. Everything is mixed up, the lines are blurred everywhere. So it's about just the way we think about how this needs to be supported and how the ecosystem needs to be built.
Right. And yet, as we're growing, there seems to be like two parallel things happening. So on one side, there's this big world of concerts, and you know, we're talking about it all the time now. And on the other side, there's this very vibrant living culture that Bangalore has had of smaller, more intimate gigs, you know, smaller formats. Do you think these worlds are growing on two separate tracks? And as this concert economy grows, how can we think about bringing them together? How can we think about making the concert space or event space more inclusive? In terms of artists, again, genres like you said, how can we make sure that's part of the system? And I think that would be a question to all three of you, if you can weigh in on how we can think about inclusivity and representation.
Should I go for it? Yeah. So I think we already have a very incredibly thriving culture of all genres of entertainment, right? You take Sufi to pop to theater, musicals, name anything. We have the most incredible community that already has been in existence. Now, what you need to do is to consolidate and get them together in one space, you know, and create an opportunity for people to come and showcase these things of all sizes and scales. So the one small step that we've already done, which I can speak only for myself, is I have always, of course, dreamed of having a venue since 1998, from the time I first went and saw something overseas. And I said, why should we travel 5,000 miles to enjoy something so beautifully in terms of the entire experience, from the time you leave home or your hotel to the time the way you travel, to the way you enter, the smooth entry, how quickly you can get your food, beverages, whatever, you know, everything has to be smooth. And that's what it is everywhere else. And we never had it here in India. And luckily now, the beauty is that, you know, credited to the government of Karnataka, they have sort of approved of Aerocity at the Bangalore airport, which also has a concert arena. Which means there are other cities that also have Aerocities. Delhi has it and other airports are also coming up, but Bangalore is the only one that has allocated space for concerts. And that was their vision. And secondly, after we won the tender, the beauty is, of course, we've got the best partners, because it is the scale is so large that we have Embassy Group who are investing. I'm investing, phase one we're investing. And we have an international partner also who's the world's largest entertainment company that's also invested in this project, which means you can expect to see the biggest artists from comedy to EDM to concerts and everything happening. Now, what about Karnataka government? You know, one thing that they just, it's a 2-week-old story where they have actually given us a subsidy, which means the government of Karnataka, the tourism department, has understood the value in the temporary employment, the permanent employment, the taxation, the local economy, which will benefit from hotels to taxis, You name it, everything surrounding it, right? So I think it's a great start. I don't think any other state in the country has actually I read a story about Maharashtra just recently, but it's still a long way off. Here, the proof of concept is here in the eating. So we've kind of broken ground. We should be ready in about 18 months and barring one permission. But beyond that, I'm just saying that, government of Karnataka has recognized that. And therefore, while we complain and everything as consumers, we don't know what's happening. But behind the scene, there's so much really happening. It's like nobody can make out how much of the metro is really, built. But we just think, oh, there's nothing happening. Underground, they're building 15 stations. Nobody even knows until it really opens up. So I think we need to be a little softer with the government. But at the same time, one thing that I'm glad that we have, we have our Arshad over here, because he's one of the most dynamic politicians of our age, a young, incredible person. He's going to go a long, long way very soon, which means I'm going to make a submission to him right now. One of my industry colleagues had said recently that you can't do a concert or any kind of a large format event without the government being part of it at all. Because the whole city has to be involved. It's just not the venue. The venue is just a small piece. How is the city going to be involved? How do you make sure that you charter additional trains instead of every 3 minutes, you charter every 20 seconds a train when a concert gets over and everybody gets home quickly, just like what happens in Zurich after cricket, after a football match and everything. So can we look at, easily, if I'm selling a ticket to somebody, it should include your metro ticket, it should include everything, a taxi, 20% discount, etc. So it encourages people to take public transportation, carpool, so on and so forth. Single window clearances. Excise, liquor to, traffic, law and order, fire, everything. Poor promoters have to go through so many different desks and so much of difficulty for pyrotechnics and everything. So that's something that the government needs to enable as a single window clearance. Therefore, I'm making a submission to you, which means, we'll have to speak to the powers that be, but we need to do this really quick. And get some, apart from cash subsidies, I think there's much more that can be done. And I believe our government is the first one that's already on the way. I don't want to give them too much credit yet. We need to see it happening, and it's all happening. So I don't want to come across like I'm batting for the government, but I think we have to co-create this ecosystem. And I think we're in a good space right now. I think we can see something quite incredible in the next couple of years going forward. That's my, little...
Right.
2 bits.
Right, thank you. Thank you for the optimistic outlook, which I know we all share. But coming also to the gaps that are very real right now and will continue to be unless, we address them. Something that commonly comes up is the lack of a policy. So you also mentioned that, Om, about the lack of like a single avenue or a single policy or a single body, be it for licensing, for permissions. And also in our city, we've had the recent Ed Sheeran's performance being shut down, permissions, questions about that. So as we think about governance for the greater Bengaluru area, how does this feature into that? And as a people's representative, how do you plan to take that forward?
Well-connected, spacious, open arenas are something which is basics to any big city as Bangalore, right? It is not something luxury now. So if you want to stay into that category, you need to create infrastructure. And I think we have started understanding that and we are moving towards it. Like Om just said that the state government has given subsidy and supporting an arena to be built there. Yes. So this was something which was never thought of before or never heard of before. A 10-year back or a 15, 20 years back, it should have been done. But those times, somebody would have criticized that you're spending public money on something which is not very useful. Maybe now the things have changed, approaches have changed. And we need to understand that what are the infrastructural needs of this city, the expectations of the people, the youngsters especially, and we need to place ourselves in the international stage and create that kind of infrastructure and create that kind of a policy. And at the same time, sensitize our own people. That's the mental shift I'm talking about. Why only Ed Sheeran? Even any artist could have stood there on Church Street and performed and shown his talent for 10, 20, 30 minutes. what would have gone wrong? And one of our cop goes there and just removes unplugs the whole thing. That's the shift in thinking which I'm talking about. And I'm very happy that Deccan Herald has put us all on this platform and discussing this. This is the way you need to bring this on mainstream. This is the way you need to push people like us and in the government to think towards this. And I'm happy that you all have done that. And we will also, in coming days, take this as priority and give a policy push and also thrust for the infrastructure.
Right. Would either of you like to respond to any of that? Or I think the theme that's been coming up a lot is this attitude change, or this idea of the type of artists we expect. Would you like to add anything to that?
I think just one small thing, which is, again, for the city's culture and musical or artistic diversity to grow, again, we need this, like all your, hyper-local delivery systems, how they've evolved and how they're all thriving, some of them at least. I think there's, again, that very local thing about having venues that are easily accessible by areas, and having proper curation at those places where local artists get a chance to showcase their work, right? In a meaningful, long-term way. Again, this can only be done with public support. It can't really be done by for-profit entities entirely by themselves, because then the motives change. Some of those things just don't work the same way. So I think it'll be great to see more like that. And Bangalore has no dearth of auditoria and spaces, just that they're not being managed and run with this in mind, making them active centers for culture and for promotion of the art that's in the city already. It'll be great to see more of that.
And Om, I think with your hopeful outlook, my question would be, what would you envision for Bengaluru in 2040 as a concert space and even as an event space?
I wanted to respond to the previous one, but let me finish this. I think we should be the capital for entertainment. We will be, I think. Not I think, we will be. With everything. Like, if some of you have traveled and visited the Geo World Convention Center in Mumbai, they also have an NMACC, that is the Nita Mukesh Ambani, Cultural Arts Center. So you need a theater which is sophisticated. You need a theatrical space. You need convention spaces. You need concert spaces. You need smaller theaters. You need all kinds, So I believe that with the way we are headed to, I would like to genuinely drive this forward myself because we do all kinds of projects, and if we can show the proof of concept to say how it can be hacked. Because you must understand that nobody gives land for entertainment. If there is land, any real estate person will want to build apartments, hotels, malls, warehouses, that's it. There is no precedence to show that, look, if you do run build a venue, this is the kind of returns that you're going to get on investment. So we are in the process of demonstrating that because we believe in it. So once you're showcasing that, and I think the rest of the industry is going to follow suit in their respective spaces. And it's a simple format, which means, you can't be funding everything on your own, right? So when you look for debt, if you have nationalized banks who need to fund you, they need to see something that's already there as a proof of concept. So we've taken a hell of a lot of, chances to do this, but I think once that's done, by 2040, Bangalore is going to be the one that's going to lead the way in everything. It'll be like your Las Vegases of the world with so many tourists, so much of things happening, and multiple strips and not just one, is what I think.
That's a great and hopeful outlook to end on. Thank you all for your time and insights, and thank you all. Good evening.